Hi, Brennan. We're going to take a look at your emphasis posting and offer you some observations here. So let's call it up right there and let's get going. Okay. So, first thing I want to do is basically just kind of look at how you're organizing everything. Looks like we have texture and then the images above is the way you've put it together. They're a bit out of order in terms of how we shot it from the outside to the inside. It's helpful when we have it set up that way because we can definitely see that you are moving in. So as I see it, should be the closest thing that you are at, but neither here nor there. We'll kind of deal with that as we go. So you chose the 4x3, which is a much more square format for you. So that is a sort of a format choice that can help you and then sometimes can get in your way. But even more so, what I am seeing here is that you chose a very wide angle on your lens. In other words, you had the lens zoomed all the way back out. So that's what's causing the sort of bubble effect on your camera. That's why everything seems to be so far away, is you got your lens zoomed out all the way out. Now that is not a terrible thing. That is just, that's what's causing what's happening, and you are getting distortion on it. So be very aware of that, especially with buildings. You probably wanted to come in zoomed in to get it and then shot at that level, at least until you notice that the curvature of those lines went away. The curvature of those lines can be very distracting at times when you're doing imagery like this. It's not always the best choice. I've already talked about the parameters of the project in the overview video in terms of what we were trying to accomplish and why we did the project and so on. So in this video, I would much rather sort of go over the sort of individual components of your work, maybe some compositional stuff that I'm observing. And as I'm scrolling up and down, I'm kind of taking in what sort of repetition, what sort of things that I see about your work that I'm noticing. Now, there's a built-in leading line that's gonna happen when you have that wide angle, because everything's gonna feel like it's kind of zoomed in. But even then, you are using the converging lines quite a bit in your compositions. And what I mean is we have these converging sort of line elements that are going on in all of these. I'm kind of back it up here. Here you have this convergence here, and they're all sort of going in this horizontal direction. We'll talk a little bit more about this stuff a little bit later, but here you have a little bit more of that. You got this converging sort of loop that's pulling you into the image. You got these converging lines that are aiming down and pointing you right over here. You have in this image, you have all these converging lines bringing you into the composition. You have clearly here, there's converging lines that bring you deep into the space there. Here, there's more converging lines. Clearly, you have that converging line in the center of your composition. So over and over again, you're using this sort of strategy, whether you know it or not, of pulling the viewer's eye into the composition via an arrow. You're taking an arrow and you're saying, look at this. Now, that could be deliberate. You may have been consciously doing that and going, this is what, attracts me to it. Or your sensibility just is naturally drawn to that. You're looking for something that looks right. And when you see this sort of element going on, that's what feels right to you. And so that's a kind of a natural tendency or an intuitive tendency that we want to be aware of. We want to know what our sort of intuition tells us or what our instinct tells us, things we just do automatically. That's important to know those things, of course, so that we can take advantage of it, but also so that we can subvert it, so that we don't fall into a sort of ritual of just going over and over and over again the same kind of solutions to a composition problem. Now, you did break it up here, and by design, the project itself kind of hopefully forced you into these situations where you couldn't use the same design or composition strategy altogether. Here, you're using something a little bit different. You're using the close versus far away strategy here, and they're a little less, I guess, exciting. They're a little less dynamic. That would be the better word, dynamic, because you don't have those lines. Here, you found the line again, and you can see, boom, you're drawn right in there with with an arrow. So pay attention to those kinds of things, what you're doing and how you're doing it. Here, you even have this progressive rhythm that's going on from here to here, and then there's this little thing back in here that's leading you around. You love those leading lines, don't you? Now, there's a couple of things that we need to address just to clean up your compositions. Things like this little edge over here. Is it really necessary, all of these over here? Meaning, if I kind of turn my hand over to the side on that and cover it up, this area right in here, does it improve the composition? And I might say, yeah, it does, because it's no longer distracting me, this little corner, the sliver of lots of information versus this large area right in here, which is very sort of open, almost like negative space. So I think you could probably do without this kind of stuff, and that's really paying attention to the whole edges of your picture frame. Happens again in a few other spots in these compositions where I'm seeing some information that may or may not need to be in the photograph. Not a lot, but it is there. Things like this. This is like resting right on the edge of the ground there. It almost looks like you meant to have it there, but the placement of it is just sort of pulling attention away from what it seems like you're really wanting us to engage with, which is this activity all up in here. But then we have this one area of orange with type on it, no less. That's probably not where you want us to be focusing on 100%. Even things like this right over in here, this business here, is that totally necessary? Is that a part of what you're trying to communicate to us? Photography is all about subtraction. It's so much about what you don't see as a photographer. When you put your camera up there, you are immediately deleting things, right? You have the whole world in front of you, and you do this, suddenly you've deleted everything except for what's in here. Now you just sort of start moving around, you zoom in, you come out, you get close, you go on top. All of that is removing things until it's only everything you need. Only everything you need. So from edge to edge, corner to corner, all of it is necessary. Otherwise, you find ways to get it out of the composition. Just like in a drawing, you don't put stuff in that's not necessary. You draw the piece of garbage in the background if you don't need it to be there for the composition. Well, the garbage in the background of a photograph needs to be not there, and it's going to be there unless you address it. So it's the opposite. It's reversal. It's a subtractive kind of thing. So I do see a lot of really positive things going on with your photography. I would suggest on future ones to pay very close attention to that angle, so you're not getting that sort of bubble effect. That can be sort of distracting, particularly if you're using geometric shapes or straight lines. It can really give you that curvature that's not necessarily appealing. But overall, notice that you're using those leading lines a lot. Is that something that you meant to do? Is that something you're just like, oh, okay, that's cool. But either way, know that you did that. Know that that's something that you were doing quite often in, I would say, probably 75, 80% of those photographs had that incorporated into it. So I really look forward to seeing more of your photography, and we'll see you in the studio. All right. Bye now.